So in this video, we'll take a look at increasing the details on here. Now, in the previous video, I mentioned the third pass, but what I'll do is increase the detail level and create a new layer, and then focus a little bit more on the brushes and the influence of those brushes on that higher detail level. So let's lock this third pass sculpt layer and add a new sculpt layer. And down in the multi-resolution tab down here, I'm going to increase the resolution. And you can see that we've now jumped up to 4.8 million polygons. Now that has softened a lot of the detail that we created in the previous version, which isn't a bad thing. It softens that down. But I'm going to go one step further here, and I'm going to increase this again. But now we're at 19 million polygons. So let's take a look at some of the brushes. So again, when we're at these higher resolutions, we can use brushes such as the pinch brush. We can see the detail level that we've got on here. We can reduce the depth of that. Let's just undo those two to give us these sort of marks on here. Now another thing that we can do is we can use a very specific set of brushes, and I've already set these up, and I'll just click on my preset here and I'll go over to my presets, and I've loaded this preset in, and they are Rigard presets here. And inside your brushes, once you've installed these, you can go over to the Rigard presets, which is here, Rigard Creations Skin Pack, and that brings up a set of different brushes here that works with this preset. And as you can see, it says on here, apply details. Now I'm not going to go into how to install this as there is a video already available on how to do that. So once it's installed, you can come into here and start to look at some of these brushes and how they affect the skin. So let's take a look at this area here, and with my layer selected, I'm just going to create my first detail on the skin. And don't worry if it's too high, we can always just reduce that down. So let's keep working that and give us just some details, the non-creased areas of our dinosaur. So I'm only going to apply this where there is very little creasing. So here, for example, over here on the shoulder, and the larger I drag this, you can see those details really start to pop. And then as I get to a more creased area, then I may just reduce the amount of size on those and just make them a little bit tighter and smaller. Okay, so let's have a look at another brush. And let's move over to this area and just drag out some of these. Now these are more crease orientated brushes, and where we have these creases, we can start to use this type of brush because it's a slightly different. It works slightly differently. It works better on those creases around the edge. So we can start to bring those in. We must make sure that, as you can see, this brush has got an arc, so I'm rotating it around so that it rotates and follows the creases in its natural arc around. So that brush is quite useful, and there are a couple of variations of that, so we can take a look at these ones as well. Rotate this one the opposite way here just to get those creases in there. Let's go over to the shoulder, rotate it so that the arc is following correctly. Where those intersect there, you want to try to avoid those areas where it intersects very, very strongly, and try to find an alternative brush for that area. So here I'll choose this option down here, and let's see what this one does. Nice creases and small creases on there, but the brush is a little bit too harsh at the moment. So let's just undo that and drop this down even further, maybe to something like 4, and we can build that up And we're not restricted to just one layer here. We could do multiple passes and on multiple layers and just build those up if we wanted to. But you can see here that I'm able now to really add that fine detail to. Okay, so let's just work our way through some of these. So I'll start over here and let's go over to this side, and I'll just start to bring in this brush stroke here. And that works quite nicely. It also works nicely along with those brush strokes that we initially did when we were creating those ridges, if you remember at the beginning. This one feels quite nice, and I like that overlap. When I was talking earlier about the gradients, we get a natural gradient with this where it generally just fades into the next area of our surface. And here I'm going to just turn the symmetry off, and whilst we're here, let's do the front part, and then I'll bring the symmetry back on and work on each side. So you can see how this is a great time saver, these sets of brushes are, because we've already tried to create with the pinch brush some of this detail, and it took us a considerable amount of time to actually add those details, whereas this one we're just working our way through quite quickly here, just stretching out these brush types to cover quite large areas all in one go. So here is an area that we haven't looked at yet. So we can see here that if I start to drag here, I'm starting to drag over this area down here, and I don't want that. I want to keep that one separate. So what we can do here is we can actually just mask this area out. And in 3DCoat, instead of it being called masking, it's called freeze. So we can use the freeze tool, and I'm going to just use just a normal pen here, and I'm going to specify the area that I'm going to freeze, and that's going to be this area down here. And of course we can use the lasso tool as well to do this. And of course we can use the lasso tool to do this. So I'm going to choose the lasso tool here, and I'm just going to say ignore back faces. Something like that. I'm only interested in this top area anyway, and I think I've got that covered. So let's go back to our Ricard tool here, and now just continue. And if I go back to the freeze tool here, these are the tool options for it. And if I go to the main menu at the top here, I've got some additional tools here for freezing. So here, for example, I can just say unfreeze, and that releases. And you can see now that there was no application of this brush alpha onto this area. So you can really see here how that texture is working on our model, because we're at such a high resolution here that we're able to place those details on there. So I'm going to go ahead now and work my way around the dinosaur at this resolution using these brushes down here, and I may occasionally use a couple of other brushes as well. So this is the final result for the sculpting pass. You can see the skin details now that I've created. I've gone over the hands, and I can add extra details if I want to within the paint room after I've baked, and normal details can be added as well as paint information, specular information, etc. We're not limited to what we've done here, but as far as the project goes for the sculpt room, I think we've come to a good point now where we can basically move on to the next stage. So for the next stage, we're going to look at going back into the modeling room, and there we will start to UV the base mesh that we created in preparation for baking. See you next time.